But yeah, it's great to get together and to share our wines and some stories and just kind of relax after all the craziness of harvest. So yeah. Um, so we have a lovely presentation for you guys with some gorgeous pictures of the vineyard and things. So I'll just be talking along with that and pointing out some things and giving you some stories. So this first slide here is a really lovely picture of our two founders, Larry and Linda. So they purchased the property in 93 and our first vintage was in 95. So this is actually, despite 2020 being a bit of a challenge of a year, it's a big year for us. It's our 25th anniversary. So pretty cool. We were one of the first 30 wineries in the Okanagan or in BC. So it's pretty special as well. It's they're pretty much pioneers at that time figuring it out, and yeah, we owe them a lot of gratitude for that because they've created a really beautiful site. We've always been focused on really premium grapes and premium wines and really elegant wines as well. So that's always been our focus, and the grape growing has always been Larry's passion and his focus as well. So, and also pictured there are, oh, sorry, Sully and Pino, the two winery dogs. Okay, sorry, Barb, you can go ahead. So this slide really shows Okanagan Falls and kind of delineates the two sub-regions within our sub-GI. So if you don't know, sub-GI is a region within the Okanagan or within a larger region that is identified by specific geological or geographical qualities and traits. So Okanagan Falls is one of those regions, and it's obviously very near and dear to our hearts, but we think it's quite special. So as you can see in the top picture there, there's Skaha Lake at the very top, and this northern part of Okanagan Falls is quite flat. It has a lot of gravel, glacial till, and silty loam. Our Shuttleworth Creek property, which is kind of up where Barb is pointing there, was an alluvial floodplain. So really well-draining soils, lots of gravel, and lots of little rivulets that go through the vineyard, making, adding a lot of complexity and variation. The bottom picture there shows more of the south part of Okanagan Falls. So we're in between two quite narrow pieces of the Okanagan, which also makes us quite unique. So we're not quite in the bottom left there, but kind of gives you an idea of what the region looks like. In the southern part, that area is really demarked by our kettle holes, which I'll get into a little bit later, but that's definitely the other significant geological trait. There's our wonderful vineyard team. So on the right, there's Larry, our founder, as I was talking about before. And then the three guys to the left are our awesome vineyard team that does all the work throughout the year and makes my job a lot easier by growing this amazing fruit that I get to work with. So at the very left there's Hector. Next to him is Willem, and then there's Lazaro to his right. So Hector and Lazaro are two vineyard workers that come from Mexico every year. They've been joining us for about 8 years now, and they're just incredible. And then Willem in the middle there is our vineyard manager, and he has just been doing such an amazing job and really puts his heart and soul into growing grapes. And yeah, we're extremely lucky to have all of them. But more about this vineyard, the trellising, thank you, Barb. The trellising system is a bit different than a lot of what you see in the Okanagan. So a lot of what you see is vertical shoot positioning. So you have this cordon along the wire, and then the shoots go straight up, and then the fruit is along the bottom. We, Larry decided at the beginning to use Geneva double curtain, which is, it runs along the very top, and then the shoots flop down. So all the fruit is at the top, soaking up every bit of Okanagan sunshine it possibly can. Being so northerly, we need to do that and take advantage of it as much as we can. Okay, now you can go, Barb. Sorry. So this is our absolutely stunning Stag's Hollow Estate vineyard. So what Barb circled just then was our winery and tasting room. If you haven't been there, you should absolutely stop by and see us. But this kind of shows exactly what our estate vineyard is all about. Oh, sorry guys. Um, so on the far slope there is Merlot to the left. You could kind of see it's a little bit darker on the left-hand side. And then just to the right of that is 2 rows of Cab Franc and Pinot Noir as well. On the bottom here, just kind of in the corner, is our Vidal. Oh, sorry, just I switched up the order, Barb. I'm sorry. um, so that's east facing. It's a little bit cooler, and that's kind of the last thing to come off of that vineyard. So what Barb was kind of encircling there, along the dirt road, it goes all the way around this big hole that's in the property, which we call the hollow, hence Stag's Hollow. Um, and that's, as I was saying, one of the significant kind of geographical or geological aspects of Okanagan Falls. We have these big pockets that were formed as the glaciers moved through the valley, and they kind of left these icy deposits, which eventually melted away. But we have this gorgeous hole in our property to work with because it provides so many different kind of ranges. From the bottom, where we have planted a little bit of Muscat Autumnal, to the top, it can range about 9 degrees in difference, which is pretty significant. Along the edges there, as Barb was pointing out, there is Tempranillo. And then that's about it that's planted there. This is our Shuttleworth Creek property. So you could see very different, very flat, and completely different soil makeup. So this is where we have a lot of unique and kind of unknown varieties planted. So we have our Albarino, which we're trying tonight, and some more Tempranillo, some Delcetto, Trellising, and a lot of Pinot Noir, which is one of our huge focuses. We have six with at the moment. We've just planted a 7th. But if you're curious, they're 828, 777, 115, 114, Pomard, and then clone 943 we just planted a couple of years ago as well. So lots to work with there. It's really fun because each clone acts differently, and it's really neat to have all those pieces to work with. Oh, and we also have a little bit of Gamay and Syrah and Vidal planted there, and Orange Muscat. So there's a few. There's a lot going on in this one, but kind of shows, life in the cellar. On the left there where Barb is pointing, that is the guys, Willem and Joseph, sorting some Vidal, which looks absolutely beautiful. They went pretty fast that day because there was not a lot of stuff to sort out. In the very corner of that picture, you could see Libby, who's joining us today as well. But she's my cellar hand and my right-hand girl. And then over to the right, there's me working away. So hanging out by the tanks and in the barrel room there. In terms of winemaking, we've always been focused on kind of minimal intervention. And I know that that's kind of a buzzword right now, but it really has been our kind of ethos since our beginning. We definitely feel like our wine is made in the vineyard, and that is what we try to showcase the most. So we do as little as possible in the cellar. We just want to support what we have and all the hard work that the guys put into the vineyard. So we use gravity wherever possible. We use, hand sorting, hand harvesting. We use, we're lessening the amount of new oak that we're using year by year, and using vessels like concrete and stainless steel barrels, things like that. So we're just really focused on showing the purity of the fruit, and I think that will come through as we taste through the wines. And here we go. Here's the first one.
One of my favorites.
It's in my glass too. I love this wine. The 19 Albarino was something really special. 19 was a challenging wine or challenging year across the valley because we had this really, really early frost event. So in early October, which is way earlier than usual, all across the valley we had this hard frost, and basically it meant that everything had to come in. Thankfully though, although it made our lives a bit crazy for about 10 days, the fruit was phenomenal. So Albarino was, I think, some of the best fruit that we had that year. And where normally we do kind of a selective pick dates, because of the weather we were forced to bring everything in at the same time, which turned out to be amazing because we had this really incredible amount of complexity and balance within the wine or within the juice that came in, because some pockets were a little bit further ahead, some pockets were a little bit further behind. So it really created a harmonious wine. Winemaking wise, we used a little bit more solids inclusion this year than we have in other years, and I really feel like that added a lot of texture and complexity to the wine. We did a lot of lees stirring, and we used a lot of vessels. So, maybe
When
not.
you say solids inclusion, you mean must.
Yes. So when you press it off, rather than settling it out totally and having crystal clear juice, it's a little bit turbid. So you have a little bit of the solid grape kind of pumice kind of floating around in there, which makes it a little bit cloudy to start with, but I think really builds a lot of texture and interest. But yeah, I think it's a phenomenal wine for seafood. That's what we always kind of recommend with it. But I think it's pretty darn good on its own.
Awesome. I do too. It's delicious.
Thank you.
I love the acidity. It's fantastic.
Thanks. Tragically Vidal. So everyone always asks, why tragic? Why is it a tragic wine? And the reason for that is that there's not a lot of table wines that are made from Vidal now. A lot of it was taken out of the valley in the early 90s. It's a hybrid grape, so maybe not as kind of highly sought after as, your vinifera varieties, so Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, those kind of things. But we really felt, and Larry especially, that there's something really special about Vidal. And we found over the years that there's something really cool about it after you let the grapes freeze. So after the first frost is when we normally pick Vidal. And what happens there is that you get a little bit of the softening of the skins, and the flavors really develop, and you're able to get a lot of that. It's kind of like a fruit salad in the glass. So you get all these beautiful flavors, and it's quite unique, and it surprisingly ages really beautifully. We've been fortunate enough to try some quite old vintages from Larry and Linda's cellar, and it's been wonderful to kind of follow them along. But 2012 is my favorite so far.
Awesome. And for those of us who love pad thai, green curry, coconut curry, like what a great marriage.
Yeah, like
yes,
a Thai coconut soup kind of thing would be phenomenal with it as well.
There we go. Recipes on their way.
Yeah. Okay, Renaissance Pinot Noir. So as I was saying, Pinot is a huge part of our portfolio, and what I definitely put a lot of my heart and soul into. We have a lot of clones to work with and some very different sites. So Stag's Hollow, the slope that we pointed out there, is quite a warm the site. It is west facing, so it gets a lot of that afternoon sun. And so we get a lot of really rich, ripe flavors from that area, much like, I mean, not exactly, but along the lines of like a Russian River style Pinot. So big, bold, fuller bodied than a lot of the kind of New World leaner styles. Whereas Shuttleworth Creek is totally different. So you get a lot of, botanical influence. You get so many floral components to it as well, and just bright beautiful fruit. And some of that has to do with the fact that it is significantly younger than the Stag's Hollow site, but I think the two together make a really beautiful, or give me a lot to work with anyways in terms of blending. So what we do is we keep everything separate. So there's, every clone is treated separately, through to barreling, through aging, and then that gives us so much to work with in terms of blending. So we go through and taste through all the barrels, see what the differences are between clones, and it's amazing to see, you know, you could put the same clone in two barrels that are the same year, different cooperages, and they're completely different. So that's been really fascinating to see. Anyways, back to this wine. Sorry, I'm babbling too much.
No, but it's quite amazing. But your point is quite amazing. And, you know, maybe what we'll do next time is just a Pinot Noir tasting with all of your styles, if
Yeah, I
that's
think
possible.
we should do that.
That would be very fun. Yeah.
So the Renaissance is basically the best of the best that we produce. So it's a very small quantity. I think 2018 was 2 barrels that we put together.
Wow.
Which was my favorite clone, Pomard, and then that was from Shuttleworth Creek, and then a little bit of 115 and 667 from Stag's Hollow Vineyard. So definitely a more masculine, fuller style of Pinot, but also one that's built to age quite a while. So yeah.
Beautiful. And I like this cassoulet. Who makes cassoulet? I hope I have some assistant come and make me Yes, please come and make it for me.
Yeah, you should. All right.
This was fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dolcetto. So something a lot of people might not have heard of. Dolcetto is a grape that comes from northwestern Italy in the Piemonte region. So maybe a little bit overlooked when you have things like Barolo to turn to, but there's something really special about Dolcetto. So this comes from our Shuttleworth Creek vineyard. And I think it's all about the vibrancy and the fruit. So this is actually my first red that we released that was 100% my own, which is pretty cool. And we changed up the winemaking a little bit this year. So in 2018, we decided to do a little bit of délestage. So we kind of assembled this setup to be able to basically do a pump over, so bringing the juice from the bottom of the ferment over the top, but then we went through a screen to get a lot of the seeds out of it, because we really wanted the fruit to shine rather than any harsh tannins or anything like that. So we incorporated a lot of air and really worked with it. So yeah, it was really fun to make, and I think it's one of my favorite wines.
It has big flavor. It has very big flavor, and that's what stands out. And it's not shy.
No.
And meat is a great accompaniment for sure. And tomato, like something that, you know, it can really kind of work off, that has flavorful components too. And it had a little bit of drying quality, but it was just very good.
Terraldigo. So Terraldigo is a grape that comes from the other side of Italy, so northeastern in the Dolomite region. So it's a grape that was, until 10 years or so, not really used or blended away into kind of lower quality wines, until this phenomenal woman, Elisabetta Foradori, came along and kind of brought it back to the forefront of Trentino, which is the region. So we are lucky enough to have a little bit planted in our Shuttleworth Creek property. It's works out to be just about a ton every year, so about 70 cases. It's not a lot, but it is a pretty cool wine. Thank you, Libby. Pretty cool wine as well. So I think the most amazing aspect of it for me is the color. Like, it's so inky. And what's really cool is it's that color from the minute that you crush it. So it's not, okay, Erin, what's the word that I always forget?
Teinturier.
It's not a teinturier. So it does have white flesh, or white flesh under the skin, but the color that comes out of the skin is phenomenal. So yeah, it's always a really fun one to make. But Yeah, again, all about the fruit and the acidity.
You don't do anything with oak on this, do you?
Neutral.
Neutral.
So we try to keep it as neutral as possible just because it is so unique and we want to show kind of the botanical edge of it, but also the fruit flavors. It's so unique. So
Very unique.
yeah.
And grilled meats. I
And
mean,
grilled meats. Yeah.
yeah. Again, it's one of those, it's got a lot of flavor.
Yes, definitely. Right. And Tempranillo. So as I was saying before, we have Tempranillo planted to both vineyards, kind of ringing the hollow at our estate vineyard, and then also planted to Shuttleworth Creek. They're a few years apart in plantings, but the flavors that come from each vineyard are crazy different. So Stag's Hollow fruit is all about kind of the rusticity of Tempranillo. So it has that kind of leathery dustiness, kind of a little bit, I don't know, rustic comes to mind. So, you have a little bit more earthiness, whereas Shuttleworth Creek is a lot more about the bright fruit and, the floral aspect of it. But the two of them together really work well. In terms of our oak program, we do a mix of French and American oak. It's the only wine that we use American oak with. And I think American oak just lends itself so beautifully to Tempranillo. While softening the tannins, it also brings out these beautiful kind of leathery caramel notes in it. So yeah,
it's very tasty. And I think the American oak, there's like a nice sort of sweet baking spice, and there's a nice vanilla note, and it's like really approachable. I think there was a lot of complexity in it, and I was trying to imagine, are we going to bring Spain into this? So again, I'm like, okay, I have to go and get a bottle of now Tempranillo from Spain, it's like just to compare. Yeah. So just a curiosity, like how did all these unusual varietals end up in Stag's Hollow in Okanagan Falls? Yeah, like how'd they get here?
I think honestly, Larry and Linda have always been, as I was saying, kind of pioneers, and they've always kind of searched for different things. I think they've also, they love wine and they try wine from all over the world. So, they find something they like and then see if it might match to our climate here. Especially the Delcetto, that kind of came into play. They were looking for something, a little bit different, but also that would match with our climate. And Piemonte is quite similar climatically as the Okanagan, so that worked out quite well. But I think it's also just a bit of fun. Like
they didn't pack all the little plants in a suitcase and bring them here from somewhere on their journey.
No.
So they're from a nursery and someone's propagating these. Is that okay?
Yeah, down south. So actually, you'll find all of these varieties in Oregon and Washington, and that's where we got them from. But yeah, I feel very fortunate to be able to work with all of those. But
did we cover it all? We covered it all.
I guess so.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget we still have a beautiful offer from Stag's Hollow until November the 30th. So I'm going to stop the share, and now we're going to have your time with Keira.
Yay!
Yay! All right. And I'm going to put you on speaker view. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to stop the recording.